What if the Roman Empire never fell? Imagine a world where the ancient empire of Rome never crumbled, where its legions still march, its roads stretch across continents, and its influence shapes the course of history through the ages. How would the course of civilization change if the mighty empire that once ruled over vast swathes of Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa endured into the modern era? In today's video, we're diving deep into this alternate history to explore the mind-bending possibilities of a world where Rome never fell. Stay tuned, because the answers might surprise you. The Roman Empire at its peak. The Roman Empire was one of the largest and most influential civilizations in human history, stretching across Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa at its peak. If the Roman Empire had never fallen, the course of history would have been dramatically different. But what would the world look like today if Rome had continued to dominate the Western world, and its influence had endured? To begin answering this question, it's important to understand what the Roman Empire was at its peak, around the 2nd century AD. This was a time when the Roman Empire was at its greatest territorial extent, with emperors like Trajan and Hadrian expanding its borders to their furthest points. The empire controlled vast regions, including Britain, the Iberian Peninsula, Gaul, modern France, Germany, Greece, parts of North Africa, and much of the Middle East. Rome wasn't just a military powerhouse. It was also an intellectual and cultural hub. Roman society was sophisticated with advanced systems of governance, law, engineering, and architecture. The Roman legal system, for example, laid the foundations for modern legal frameworks in many countries around the world today. Roman innovations in infrastructure, like roads, aqueducts, and the famous Roman baths, transformed the empire and facilitated its control over such a vast territory. Roman cities were bustling centers of commerce, art, and culture. The Pax Romana, a period of relative peace and stability that lasted from 27 BC to 180 AD, allowed trade and intellectual exchange to flourish across the empire. Latin, the language of Rome, was the lingua franca of the Western world, influencing the development of modern languages such as Spanish, French, Italian, and others. Had the Roman Empire never fallen, the first thing that would likely have persisted would have been its political and administrative structure. Rome had an incredibly sophisticated system of governance that included both a senate and an emperor. While the empire was often fraught with political corruption and internal strife, it also had a highly organized bureaucracy, and its ability to govern vast territories was unmatched in the ancient world. Rome's ability to administer justice, collect taxes, and maintain order through a professional military force would have continued to serve as a model for other nations. One of the key aspects that made the Roman Empire unique was its ability to assimilate other cultures. Rome was not just a conqueror but also a unifier, bringing together diverse peoples under one rule. Roman citizenship was open to people across the empire, and it became a status that many desired. This policy helped to integrate various regions and cultures into the empire, blending Roman traditions with local customs and creating a multicultural society. This inclusivity would likely have continued, promoting a diverse and interconnected world. Now, if we consider the hypothetical scenario where the Roman Empire never fell, one of the major questions is, how would the empire have continued to evolve? Would it have been able to adapt to the challenges of time and technological progress, or would its eventual decline have been inevitable? The empire's early success was largely due to its military prowess. Roman legions were the backbone of the empire's expansion and defense, but over time, the quality of the military began to decline. If the empire had managed to survive into the medieval period, would it have maintained its military superiority in the face of new challenges from emerging powers like the Huns, the Franks, and the Saxons? The introduction of gunpowder and firearms in the Middle Ages would have posed an entirely new set of challenges. Would the Roman military have been able to modernize in time to maintain control over its vast territory? One critical aspect to consider is the relationship between the Roman Empire and the Christian Church. In the 4th century AD, Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity, making it the state religion of the empire. Christianity would go on to become a dominant force in the Western world, and the Roman Catholic Church would play a central role in shaping the future of Europe. In this alternate history where the Roman Empire never fell, it's likely that Christianity would have remained a major force in shaping the empire's identity, especially as the empire expanded into new territories. Christianity would have likely helped to unite diverse peoples within the empire, providing a common faith that transcended cultural boundaries. This could have meant that the religious, cultural, and philosophical development of Europe would have been shaped differently, with fewer interruptions by the fragmentation of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century. The potential for a more unified religious and cultural landscape might have helped the empire maintain a greater degree of cohesion. Furthermore, the Roman Empire's strength was built upon its remarkable infrastructure. Roman roads, which spanned across the empire, allowed for the rapid movement of troops, goods, and information. These roads formed the backbone of the Roman economy, and their maintenance was critical to the empire's ability to stay connected and efficient. If the Roman Empire had continued, it is likely that the development of even more advanced infrastructure would have taken place, including bridges, roads, and aqueducts, but perhaps even things we can't yet imagine, such as early forms of mass transportation or communication systems that would predate modern inventions like the telegraph or the automobile. In the Mediterranean world, trade was a central part of Roman life. Roman merchants and traders maintained vibrant trade routes stretching from the British Isles to India and China, facilitating the exchange of goods, culture, and ideas. Had the empire endured, trade would have continued to grow, potentially leading to an even more interconnected world centuries before the age of exploration. Would the Roman Empire have been the one to discover the New World? Or would the empire have encountered other civilizations that led to a radically different geopolitical landscape? As we look at these different aspects of Roman society, its political structures, military prowess, religious integration, and infrastructure, we start to see that a world where the Roman Empire never fell would have likely been a very different place, one where the foundations of modern society would have developed along very different lines. How would the story of the Middle Ages have unfolded if there had been no Dark Ages, no fragmentation of Europe into feudal states, and no rise of new kingdoms like the Franks or the Anglo-Saxons? This brings us to the next question. If the Roman Empire never fell, how would the broader world have changed? Would Rome have been able to stave off the invasions of barbarian tribes? How would the empire have adapted to the ever-changing world of medieval warfare, shifting alliances, and new technologies? These questions are essential to understand how the Roman Empire could have survived and what the consequences would have been for the world as we know it today. The medieval world under Roman rule. As we imagine a world where the Roman Empire never fell, it's essential to consider how the medieval period might have unfolded differently under Roman control. The medieval period, traditionally viewed as a time of fragmented kingdoms, feudalism, and the Dark Ages, might have looked entirely different in a world where the central authority of Rome persisted. Would the Roman Empire have successfully managed to adapt to the challenges of the medieval world, or would the growing complexity of politics, religion, and warfare eventually overwhelm it? One of the most significant shifts that would have occurred under continued Roman rule would be in the nature of political governance. Without the collapse of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century AD, Europe would not have witnessed the rise of feudalism. The political landscape, which in the real timeline saw regional lords and kings emerge in the vacuum left by the fall of Rome, would likely have been different. Instead of fragmented kingdoms competing for dominance, there may have been a more centralized form of governance, with Roman-style provinces remaining under the control of imperial appointees or military leaders. The emperor would likely have remained a unifying figure, and the Senate, which had historically represented the Roman elite, might have continued to play an important role in decision-making, though with more modern reforms suited to the changing times. The continuation of the Roman Empire would also have impacted the development of European social structures. Without the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, the feudal system may not have developed in the same way, and society might have remained more urbanized and structured. Instead of small, isolated manors controlled by local lords, towns and cities might have continued to thrive under the protection and order of the Roman government. Roman citizenship, which had already spread throughout the empire before its fall, could have continued to be an important aspect of identity, with more people having access to the rights and privileges associated with being Roman citizens, rather than falling into the rigid class divisions that emerged during the medieval period. However, there's also the question of how the Roman Empire would have handled the challenges posed by the various barbarian groups that had contributed to its eventual downfall. In our timeline, groups like the Goths, Vandals, Huns and Franks were able to exploit the Roman Empire's internal weaknesses, leading to its fragmentation. If the Roman Empire had managed to survive and adapt, how might it have dealt with these peoples? For starters, the Roman military had a history of incorporating foreign mercenaries and soldiers into its ranks. Rather than resisting the so-called barbarian invasions, it's possible that the empire could have turned these groups into allies. The Roman legions were often able to absorb defeated enemies into their ranks, creating a more diverse and multicultural military force. In an empire that never fell, these groups might have been brought into the fold as part of the Roman military machine, securing the frontiers and stabilizing the empire's borders. This could have led to a more harmonious integration of different cultures within the empire, rather than the bitter struggles that characterized much of early medieval European history. Additionally, the empire's vast network of roads and infrastructure would have continued to play a critical role in maintaining communication and the movement of troops. The Roman road system was one of the most advanced in the ancient world, and it allowed the Roman military to respond quickly to any threats along its borders. This infrastructure would have remained a significant advantage in the defense of the empire, enabling it to maintain control over its vast territories and respond effectively to external challenges. Another crucial aspect to consider is the role of religion. In the real timeline, the rise of Christianity within the Roman Empire changed the course of European history. When Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity in the 4th century AD, the Christian faith began to spread throughout the empire. By the time of the empire's division, Christianity had become the dominant religion, and the Roman Catholic Church had emerged as a central force in shaping the future of Europe. If the Roman Empire had survived into the medieval period, the influence of Christianity would have likely continued to grow. Without the fragmentation of the Western Roman Empire, there would have been no power vacuum for the rise of competing Christian kingdoms or the Church to assert its independence. Instead, the Roman Empire might have become the central religious authority, with the emperor serving as both the political and religious leader. In this scenario, the Church could have maintained its position as a powerful institution within the empire, perhaps avoiding some of the later conflicts between church and state that characterized medieval Europe. The relationship between the emperor and the papacy, which would later lead to significant power struggles, might have been one of cooperation rather than competition. Christianity's spread through the empire would also have had a profound impact on art, culture, and education. The Roman Empire was already home to a number of important educational institutions, such as those in Alexandria and Athens. If the empire had continued, it's likely that these centers of learning would have flourished, preserving classical knowledge and combining it with the emerging Christian worldview. The Renaissance, which later revived classical knowledge, may have happened centuries earlier, blending the ancient and Christian traditions in ways that could have accelerated technological, philosophical, and scientific progress. One of the most significant effects of a sustained Roman Empire would be the prevention of the so-called Dark Ages. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire, Europe entered a period marked by political instability, economic decline, and a loss of intellectual and cultural achievements. Without the collapse of the empire, it's possible that Europe could have avoided this regression, maintaining its urban centers, educational institutions, and cultural achievements. The continuity of Roman governance and infrastructure would have helped maintain stability, ensuring that Europe didn't experience the same level of disruption and cultural stagnation. Of course, challenges would have remained. As we've seen, the Roman Empire faced internal struggles, such as political corruption, economic disparity, and social unrest. These issues would have continued to require reform and adaptation. The empire would have had to evolve in response to the changing dynamics of warfare, religion, and technology. The introduction of new technologies, such as the crossbow or the longbow, would have required changes in military strategy. The growth of cities and trade would have necessitated new forms of economic organization and governance. But even with these challenges, a world in which the Roman Empire never fell would have been markedly different from the one we know today. The medieval world, instead of descending into feudalism and division, might have remained more unified under Roman rule. The empire would have been a powerful force, not only politically but also culturally, economically, and militarily, ensuring that the legacy of Rome continued to shape the course of history in ways we can only imagine. the Renaissance, and beyond. By the time we enter the early modern period, the Roman Empire would have faced some truly transformative challenges. If Rome had survived through the medieval period and entered what we know as the Renaissance, the empire would have encountered a rapidly changing world. New ideas, scientific discoveries, and global exploration would push the empire to evolve even further. So, what would the Renaissance look like under the continued Roman Empire? Would the empire lead the world into a new age of learning and discovery, or would it face new obstacles that it couldn't overcome? The Renaissance, traditionally associated with the 14th to 17th centuries in Europe, marked a period of great cultural and intellectual revival, particularly in Italy. It saw the rediscovery of classical Greek and Roman texts and an emphasis on humanism, art, and science. In the world of this alternate history, the Roman Empire would not have needed to rediscover its own heritage. Instead, it would have been at the forefront of these developments, directly connecting its ancient past with the present. The political structure of the Roman Empire would have played a key role in shaping this new Renaissance. Under a unified and continued Roman rule, there would have been no fragmented states competing for influence over the arts and education. The capital, whether it remained in Rome or moved to a newly established imperial city, would have acted as a central cultural and intellectual hub. Think of Rome not only as the political capital of an empire, but also as the center of art, philosophy, and scientific inquiry. The empire would have been a thriving metropolis of ideas, where scholars, artists, and scientists from all corners of the empire could come together. Much like the historical Renaissance, this alternate Rome would likely have experienced an explosion of artistic creativity. Roman architecture, already grand in scale and innovation, would have inspired a new generation of architects and engineers. The iconic Roman arches, aqueducts, and temples could have been reimagined with the technological advancements of the time, blending ancient Roman methods with emerging Renaissance ideas about perspective and proportion. This fusion of old and new could have led to architectural marvels that we can only imagine today. Similarly, the scientific advancements of the Renaissance, including the works of figures like Galileo, Copernicus, and Kepler, might have unfolded differently under the continued Roman Empire. The Roman world had already made incredible strides in engineering, medicine, and astronomy. The empire's continued presence as a dominant power could have provided more stable conditions for scientific inquiry. Instead of the tensions that historically existed between the Catholic Church and scientific progress, we could have seen a more harmonious relationship, with the empire's intellectual institutions supporting and funding research. However, there would still have been profound challenges. The Roman Empire, while adept at absorbing new ideas, was also steeped in tradition. Its ancient bureaucracy and military structures were designed for a different era, and adapting them to the rapidly evolving world of the Renaissance might have been difficult. The empire would have needed to remain flexible, adjusting its institutions to meet the needs of an expanding world and an increasingly complex global economy. One of the most significant changes would have come in the form of exploration. In the real world, the Renaissance led to the Age of Exploration, where European powers like Spain, Portugal, and later Britain expanded across the globe seeking new trade routes and colonies. Without the fall of the Roman Empire, this age of exploration could have been led by the Romans themselves. The empire's vast network of roads and fleets could have provided the infrastructure needed for naval exploration, enabling Rome to reach the Americas or sub-Saharan Africa centuries before the 15th century. In this alternate history, it's possible that Rome would have been the first empire to discover the New World, rather than Spain or Portugal. Roman fleets might have ventured across the Atlantic, establishing colonies in the Americas. The Romans already had a well-established naval tradition, and their ability to organize large-scale expeditions could have made them the dominant maritime power in the Mediterranean and beyond. This would have radically altered the course of world history, as the Romans would have been the ones to shape the modern global trading system. The empire's continued dominance over the Mediterranean and North Africa would also have had major implications for the broader world. The Romans might have established direct trade routes with the East, potentially bypassing the need for later European powers to control the spice trade or the Silk Road. Rome could have continued to act as a bridge between East and West, facilitating trade, culture, and ideas between civilizations. The spread of goods, technology, and knowledge between Rome and the Far East might have occurred at a far quicker pace, accelerating the development of both Roman and Eastern cultures. Of course, as the Roman Empire expanded its reach globally, the challenges of maintaining control over such a vast territory would have grown. While the empire had an impressive military, the logistics of governing a world-spanning empire would have posed significant difficulties. The technological innovations of the Renaissance might have given the Romans new tools for maintaining control, but they would have also faced constant challenges from outside powers. The Sassanid Empire, for example, was a persistent rival to Rome in the East, and in this alternate world, these tensions might have escalated into a long-term Cold War-like situation. Another issue would have been the empire's ability to adapt to new forms of government. Over time, the centralized imperial system might have begun to strain under the pressure of modernization. The Roman Senate, which once had an important role in the governance of the empire, might have had to evolve to meet the challenges of the Renaissance. The Senate could have become a more democratic institution, balancing the power of the emperor with the needs of the population. Alternatively, the emperor might have retained an even more centralized form of power, leading to the emergence of a bureaucratic state. In the cultural realm, the continuation of the Roman Empire would have created a very different landscape for art and literature. Latin would likely have remained the dominant language of the empire, and scholars would have continued to produce works in Latin. While the Renaissance saw the rise of vernacular languages, the preservation of Latin as the language of intellectualism could have led to a more uniform culture across the empire, with art, philosophy, and literature all being produced in a common tongue. This might have made it easier to preserve and transmit knowledge throughout the empire, but it could also have limited the rise of national identities and local languages that characterized the real Renaissance. However, it's important to consider how the Renaissance's humanist values might have conflicted with the Roman Empire's traditional hierarchical and militaristic culture. Humanism emphasized the potential and value of the individual, and while Rome had celebrated individual achievements, it also valued the collective good of the empire above all else. This tension between the empire's imperial values and the Renaissance ideals of personal freedom and self-expression could have led to significant cultural and political debates. Ultimately, the Renaissance under the Roman Empire would have been a unique blend of ancient traditions and modern ideas. The empire's unparalleled infrastructure, military prowess, and political stability would have provided a strong foundation for cultural and intellectual growth. However, it would have needed to adapt to the changing world around it, balancing its traditions with the rapid advancements of the Renaissance. As the empire continued to evolve and expand, it would have faced both tremendous opportunities and significant challenges in maintaining its dominance in a rapidly changing world. The modern world and the Roman Empire's legacy. As we reach the modern world, the question arises: how would the Roman Empire have functioned in the age of industrialization, global conflicts, and technological advancements? The continuous existence of the Roman Empire would have profoundly impacted not only Europe but also the world at large. As the empire entered the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries, it would have faced a series of unprecedented challenges and opportunities, fundamentally altering the course of modern history. The Industrial Revolution and technological advancements. The Industrial Revolution, which began in Britain during the late 18th century, radically transformed economies and societies across the globe. The rise of factories, mechanized production, and innovations in transportation would have posed a massive test for the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was a master of infrastructure, but the scale of change brought on by industrialization would have required major adjustments. How would a centuries-old empire adapt to new technologies such as the steam engine, electricity, or mass production techniques? In this alternate history, the Roman Empire would likely have been forced to modernize quickly, integrating industrial innovations to maintain its dominance. The Romans' sophisticated network of roads, aqueducts, and ports could have provided an ideal foundation for the growth of railroads and steamships. However, the empire would have had to grapple with the societal and economic transformations that industrialization brought. The transition from an agrarian-based economy to an industrial one would have posed significant challenges in managing labor, resources, and the distribution of wealth. Roman imperial institutions were rooted in traditionalism, But this very conservatism might have hindered the empire's ability to fully embrace the sweeping changes of the Industrial Revolution. The emergence of factory economies and the mechanization of industries might have clashed with the more rigid and bureaucratic structures of Roman governance. However, if the empire could have successfully integrated industrial practices, it might have become an economic powerhouse, competing with or even surpassing the great industrial powers of the 19th century, like Britain and Germany. World wars and global conflict. By the time the 20th century arrived, the world had entered an age of unprecedented global conflict. World War I and World War II transformed geopolitics, leading to the rise and fall of empires and the creation of nation-states. In a world where the Roman Empire still existed, would it have been a participant in these global conflicts, or would its power and influence have insulated it from the wars that reshaped the modern world? The Roman Empire's vast size, military prowess, and centralized command structure would have made it a formidable player on the world stage. The empire would have been forced to reckon with the rise of new global powers, including the United States, China, and Russia. It's possible that the Roman Empire could have maintained a position of dominance through diplomatic and military means, particularly given its long tradition of military strategy and tactics. However, it's equally likely that the empire might have faced internal pressures that could have weakened it. The rise of nationalism and the modern nation-state concept could have created tensions within the empire, as its citizens began to identify more strongly with their local regions rather than the imperial center. In terms of military conflict, the Roman Empire's army was built for large-scale engagements and had historically relied on legions composed of highly disciplined soldiers. While this structure might have been effective against traditional armies, the rise of modern warfare, characterized by tanks, aircraft, and eventually nuclear weapons, would have posed serious challenges. The Roman military would have had to modernize rapidly, incorporating advanced technology and tactics, or risk being outclassed by newer powers. During the World Wars, the Roman Empire could have become involved in alliances and global strategies. The empire might have fought on the side of democratic powers like the United States and Britain in World War I and World War II, especially considering that by this time, Rome would likely have integrated many of the Enlightenment values such as individual rights, scientific progress, and civic participation. Alternatively, a more authoritarian Roman Empire might have been an opponent to the democratic powers, complicating the alliances that defined the 20th century. The empire's colonial ambitions could also have impacted its role in global conflict. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, European powers had expanded their empires across Africa and Asia. If Rome had continued to expand, it might have established colonies in the New World, Africa, or Asia, giving it a direct stake in the global resource economy. The competition for imperial power might have led to colonial tensions, and the Roman Empire could have found itself in a direct struggle with other colonial empires, especially as national independence movements began to emerge. The Cold War and ideological struggles. If the Roman Empire had endured through the 20th century, it would have found itself at the center of ideological struggles. The Cold War, a period of geopolitical tension between the capitalist West and the communist East, might have played out very differently. The Roman Empire, with its complex political and bureaucratic structure, might have experienced internal divisions over ideology. Would the empire have embraced capitalism, or would it have turned toward a more state-controlled system, like the Soviet Union, in order to manage its vast territories? Given the Roman Empire's long-standing tradition of centralization, it might have leaned more toward a form of state socialism or a planned economy, attempting to control resources and production across its vast territories. On the other hand, it could have embraced capitalism as a means of driving innovation and maintaining its power. In either case, the empire would have had to navigate the rise of new superpowers, such as the United States and the Soviet Union, each pushing for their own economic and political systems. The decline of the empire and its legacy. Despite its many advantages, the Roman Empire would have eventually faced decline in the modern era, albeit at a much later stage than in our own history. The sheer size of the empire, coupled with the rise of modern nationalism and self-determination movements, might have made it impossible to maintain control over its vast territories. Additionally, technological and economic changes would have disrupted the imperial system, making it increasingly difficult to govern a world so different from the one that existed during Rome's Golden Age. The decline of the Roman Empire might have been a gradual process, marked by increasing political fragmentation and a loss of cohesion. But even in decline, the legacy of the Roman Empire would have been profound. Its legal system, governance, architecture, and cultural achievements would have left an indelible mark on the world. The languages and traditions of Rome, particularly Latin, would likely have endured as the foundation for Western civilization, and its influence on European culture would have remained a central force well into the modern era. The global landscape would have been fundamentally shaped by Rome's presence. Roman innovations such as roads, aqueducts, and architectural marvels would have continued to influence the built environment. Roman political thought, especially its ideas about citizenship, governance, and law, would have served as the foundation for modern political systems. In this alternate timeline, the world would still be deeply connected to its Roman past, its legacy woven into the very fabric of modern civilization. Even though the empire would have eventually seen its decline, the Roman Empire would have left behind a world shaped by its ideas, its culture, and its indomitable spirit. So, what do you think? Could the Roman Empire have survived into the modern world? Or would even the greatest empire in history eventually succumb to the tides of change? Whether it would have dominated the Industrial Revolution, led the world into the 20th century, or adapted to new global challenges, there's no doubt that its legacy would have shaped the world we live in today. If you enjoyed this journey through alternate history, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into what could have been. Until next time, keep questioning history, and who knows, maybe the greatest empire never really fell after all.